Welcome to this week's Who the Folk podcast. I'm Lonnie Goldsmith, the editor of TC Jewfolk. This week I sit down with Talor Blustin, a junior at the University of Minnesota and the marketing intern at Minnesota Hillel. Talor previews this Friday's Maroon and Gold Shabbat, talks about innovating Hillel with data, and the Little League World Series on this week's Who the Folk podcast. Talor Blustin, welcome to this week's podcast. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
So coming up this week, Friday, is the annual Maroon and Gold Shabbat, which is a fantastic evening. I've been in the past. This year it is sold out, so unfortunately if you're listening and don't have tickets, that's a bummer for you. But you've been really involved in the last couple years. What, for those who are attending and maybe have never been before, what can they expect to see at this year's event?
Yeah, it's the best showcase of what Minnesota Hillel has to offer, essentially. Hillel has a big emphasis on the staff-student partnership, and it's a display of what we've done throughout the whole year. This year, we engaged an absurd amount of people. We had a huge amount of initiatives and programs that happened in the building, and a lot of community building within the Jewish community that we haven't had in past years. And so you'll hear that talked about in a number of student speeches. You'll see the high notes perform and lead services. There's some exciting announcements and some really cool things that are happening within the next few years at Hillel, and could potentially change the course of Hillel in the future. And so this Maroon and Gold Shabbat is going to be ridiculous. It's at a new venue. And so there is a possibility that there are some walk-in tickets.
Okay.
They hold a couple, but it's kind of first come, first serve.
All right. Well, if you're listening and are interested, check with Minnesota Hillel and see if there might be some walk-ins.
You can call, and they'll be able to answer that a little bit better than I can, since I'm not as involved this year. But it's going to be a really fun night with some really cool speeches and announcements, and a great networking event too, if that's what you're interested in.
So you are the marketing intern at Hillel. You're a junior here at the U, finishing up your junior year. You talked about some of the programs and outreach to the community at large. How do you, in your role here, how do you sort of help that play out and get the word out to people? And in terms of getting some notoriety, getting more people out, how does that work? How does your role play in that?
Yeah, so I wasn't doing as much of the outreach. I was doing more of the back end informing.
Okay.
And so I was going through, we have a system called Schwipe, which tracks attendance at each event, and going through exporting that into different spreadsheets, trying to figure out who comes to what events, how we can get them to come to other similar events, and just kind of turning the knobs in the background so that we could get the people we thought would be most interested to our events. And that was a little bit ahead of where Hillel is.
Okay.
We don't have the organizational capacity yet to do that. I need a couple more interns to work on it, and we need actually, to be totally honest, Hillel International isn't there yet.
Okay.
Minnesota Hillel is there.
Oh, interesting.
Hillel International doesn't have a structure yet.
Okay.
That intuitively breaks up the things the way we wanted to do it.
Okay.
And so we had a period of time where we were working with International and with the people who were developing the systems for International, trying to get a system that could keep up with our growth. And they didn't have the capacity to do it at that time.
Interesting.
And so we are very much, and if you look at our track record, Hillel's track record, we're almost always, at least in the past 5 years, on the front end of a lot of this growth. And so this initiative that I wanted to do was actually way ahead of what International could do, and so we had to rein it back a little bit. But we do have a marketing team that puts together all of the event information, the Facebook posts, the graphics.
But in terms of analyzing the data and sort of taking that data and making it work for you, it sounds not like it frustrates you, but I guess maybe does it frustrate you a little bit that you're sort of at this point, but you've got to pull a really large organization sort of with you to get to where you want to get to?
It's frustrating that there isn't an infrastructure
Okay.
to do it, but at the same time, I think it's really fun in the sense that we're thinking so far ahead that, like, if I can look back in 3 years and see that they're doing that and be like, well, that started when I was there, like, that's kind of cool to me. And while it is a little bit frustrating, the beauty of Hillel is that if one thing doesn't work out, you cut it off and you start something new.
Okay.
And so, like, that internship position was something that I approached the staff with and said, I want to do this.
Okay.
Like, I want to create this.
So it's not so much that you're not reinventing the wheel; you're really creating the wheel.
That was the hope, and I didn't know that when I
because it doesn't seem like it should have been a situation where you were creating the wheel, because that type of tracking doesn't feel that out of line with where organizations maybe should be, right?
Yeah, I think in terms of data tracking, the nonprofit industry as a whole is always at a disadvantage, because a lot of those intuitive programs are very expensive and are much more like the Salesforces of the world, the kind of actual for-profit things that companies can pay for.
Right.
And so we essentially were reinventing the wheel, but it wasn't intuitive enough within the other programs to where we could have chosen which elements we wanted to use. We would have had to just buy the whole package and work it out.
Okay.
And that wasn't, we don't have the manpower, we didn't have the time to do that. And so what we essentially wanted to do was just, I go to a lot of events to say, I've been to every social action event, I've been to every Shabbat, and then to take that information and have a computer pull my name out of a spreadsheet and then automatically invite, or an intern inputs email addresses for an automatically generated spreadsheet saying these are the people you're interested, that could be interested in your event. That was my vision. Okay. But it was a little bit
little ahead of time.
Yeah, just a little bit.
So are there other Hillels out there that you found as you've tried to ramp this up that are trying to do something similar, or are you really setting the trend for the Hillel movement?
I haven't found any, but I also haven't done that much research.
Okay. So you can say you're setting the trend.
Right. I mean, that's the way our Hillel works, though, is that we're working our way towards being a top Hillel in like all of Hillel International by doing stuff like this. Okay. I think the fact that we're developing such a robust Jewish community, where I think we engaged over 600 students this year, and that we're towards the top of the pack in terms of engagement. I don't think it's been needed yet. I also don't think that Hillels necessarily are thinking that way. Right. They're just doing relationship-based marketing, essentially, which is Hillel's model. Right. But that's the next level, and I'm not sure that. I just don't know. I don't know. Have you or has Benji Kaplan heard from anybody at Hillel International sort of expressing interest in this model that you've developed, or to see how they can maybe help bring it to that level? I haven't heard anything. Okay. It doesn't mean that they haven't. Okay. Benji wasn't really involved, so I don't know if it made it all the way up. Mackenzie and I were working we're working hand in hand to try to get Schweip to essentially turn into what we wanted it to. Right. But it would have taken enormous amounts of people hours just to put it together. So one day, I think it'll get up there if we keep pushing it. But we're still finding success without it. So, and being a full-time student, I'd imagine it can't. There are finite number of hours in the day that you can, do that sort of stuff when you're not in class or working or doing whatever else it is you do. Yeah, it's definitely a balancing act, and that was one of the biggest frustrations, was that I had 5 hours a week to work on this. What can I get done in 5 hours a week that also can help shift Hillel into the next realm, into the next level? Right. And my life is a jigsaw puzzle. Essentially, it's how can I get this job to fit within this job and Hillel and school and but I think that's what makes it fun, to be totally honest.
So how did because as I said, you're a junior. How did you first get involved with Hillel, and when did that start taking place?
Yeah, so I'm essentially from a Hillel family.
Oh, okay.
My cousin was the student president of Hillel when I think it was his senior year, and I was on the board of directors. My brother was on the board when he was here, and I came in, believe it was my junior or senior year of high school. My brother brought me in, and it was Benji's second or third year, maybe.
Okay.
Actually, it was probably his first or second year.
Okay.
And I met him, and we just talked and kind of started to develop a bond. And I was like, this is a place that I want to be. And so I'm at the end of my 6th semester of college, and I've had an internship every semester.
Oh, wow.
If sometimes 2 or 3. I had 2 this semester. But it's just, honestly, the days when I'm not here, I feel weird.
Really?
I'm here 5 days a week. So I'm the incoming treasurer for Hillel for this next year. In my speech, I said word for word, I'm here 5 days a week. One of the days when I'm not here is Saturday, and we're closed. Yeah. And the other day is Monday, and I couldn't get a desk hour. That's my life.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
So Hillel, over the course of certainly Benji's tenure, but really, especially in the last couple of years, has racked up a bunch of national and international honors for the work that's been taking place. Did you, having seen it from the beginning of not even just the beginning of your college tenure, but through, your siblings and relatives as well, did you sort of see that coming over the last, sort of what it's built up to?
I don't know if I necessarily saw it coming, because I didn't see any of the inner workings of Hillel when my brother and my cousin were here. I just saw the impact it had on them.
Okay.
Part of it is Benji.
Yeah.
Benji is an incredible executive director, period. And what he does is he empowers everyone to do what they want and do it really well. And so this whole What's Your Hillel campaign, which is our motto for this year, it's how do you make Hillel yours? And how does it then contribute to the greater picture? And by allowing everybody to do that, our leadership team is 48, I believe.
Wow.
Something like that.
Okay.
We have an executive board of 5,
yeah.
And then we have between 40 and 50 others who are involved in some element of leadership.
That's amazing.
Everyone establishes what Hillel means to them.
Right.
And when you develop that bond to an organization, it just starts to grow. And everybody brings in their friends. We get people to engage, to take out to coffee, and then it just grows. It's that ownership element, which is huge in nonprofits.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and so that's been what has precipitated this growth, if you were going to boil it down to one thing. Right. But also Benji is just the level head that leads everything fearlessly, it's crazy. It's awesome.
He never, I've talked to him a lot of times, never really seems flustered. Nothing seems to bug him. He's very even-keeled.
No.
And as a reporter trying to get a story, sometimes that's really annoying.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think for obviously doing what he does here, really, that helps. Mm-hmm. You need that.
Yeah, and that's probably the biggest thing, is that when we're going through some really tough relationship battles on campus and some really tough situations, Benji walks into the building smiling and laughing. Yeah. And that is so contagious when you can cut the tension in the building with a knife.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, today's just a day. Hillel will be around tomorrow and the next day and the next day. We just have to keep that in perspective.
Right. And honestly, over the last few years, there's obviously been, it's well documented. We've written a lot about it on TC Jufo. There has been a whole host of relationship issues on campus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That, I think with his leadership has helped navigate really, really well.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it's been challenging and testing also for him and everyone involved.
But also that helps Hillel grow.
Yeah.
These leaders were in the building when BDS came last year. Mm-hmm. Like, we had people in the building. I spent 40 hours that week at Hillel fighting BDS. And there were 50 others in that building who were there with me.
Yeah.
And that was our leadership team for the next year.
Right.
Like that, the stuff that really isn't fun, the stuff that really can chip away at the foundation of the organization, because our whole staff is amazing, it just hasn't. It's flipped the other way.
Yeah.
And it's just grown the commitment that everybody has. And it's been honestly really fun to watch.
That's really, really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned that you're interested, obviously not just in the marketing, but nonprofit management. At what point did you know that was something you wanted to get involved in beyond college?
Yeah. I've been quasi-involved in nonprofits my entire life.
Really? Okay.
Growing up, my dad was the president of the JCC, and so I grew up walking through the buildings, seeing him run the center, and then through Bethel, through volunteering with Few My Starving Children, all of that, and it stems from just a desire to have a legacy.
Okay.
So when I've like done everything I want to do, it's looking back, what do people think of me? Mm-hmm. Do I have a good reputation? Have I given back how I want to give back? Have I made a positive change in the world? And that's where the nonprofit side came from. It's how can I do the greatest amount of good using the least amount of resources, essentially.
Okay.
I feel like that's
it's the essence of
nonprofits. But it really invigorated when I got to Hillel.
Okay.
And just seeing the impact that a nonprofit has in students who are so time crunched.
Yeah.
But I mean, I see people here every day who are studying, who are having meetings, who are eating food, who are sleeping in Chillel. It's that kind of impact is what got me involved.
Well, that's very cool.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned earlier you were a baseball player from kindergarten through high school. Mm-hmm. And I do need to ask, you were one of the few Minnesotans who, as a teenager, got to play in the Little League World Series.
Yeah.
Happened 9 years ago,
yeah.
you were saying. So what was, for people, for people who like baseball, have seen it on ESPN, what was that experience like?
It was like being in the world's greatest candy store and getting everything for free.
Okay.
So growing up, I would take 10 days out of every summer, and I'd plant myself in front of the TV and I'd watch the Little League World Series. Okay. And I'm a very analytical person, so I'd think through all of the situations and try to put myself in the game, essentially. And so when we got there and we had the opening ceremonies, we saw the dorms, we got our equipment, it was the most unreal experience I've ever had. The fact that it was my last year of Little League, too, was the culmination of getting eliminated in the third game my 10-year-old year, losing in the state championship game my 11-year-old year, and then finally my 12-year-old year, we rallied back and got to the World Series. But also, we played 35 games to get there.
Yeah. We
played every single day that summer because we came up from the losers bracket.
Right.
And so it wasn't like if we had lost one more game in our district's tournament, we would have been gone. And so it was a team coming together.
Best winning streak you could ever have.
Yeah, it was unreal. It was cloud nine the whole time. And the coolest part was just major leaguers take time out of their days to watch us.
Yeah.
Like, that's really cool.
Right.
They take time out of their day to come to the facility. A buddy of mine played ping pong with Nomar Garcia-Parra.
Oh
Bobby Valentine came to talk to us before the game. I participated in a home run contest led by Andre Dawson, the Hall of Famer. Like, you can't You can't replicate those experiences ever.
That's phenomenal.
It's literally a candy store, and everything is free.
So you still have the gear, I assume, like parents framed the jersey?
Yeah.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, my friends all make fun of me because when you walk into my living room, there's a shrine. There's a shrine to me in my living room. It's all of the, it's my cleats, it's my batting gloves, the bats they gave us, the helmet. I think the jersey's in my closet, but that'll eventually make its way down. And then there's a line of like home run balls that I hit along the way.
Oh my God. That's incredible.
It's really funny when you walk in, and there's like a collage too that a parent on the team put together for each player.
Oh my God.
That's up somewhere else in the house, and to this day my friends give me flack for it. But it's great.
Yeah, but your friends are giving you a hard time. I've never done anything that cool though. So
yeah,
I'm thinking they're just jealous.
I mean, if we flip the script, like if we flip the roles, I'd be jealous. Like, it's so cool,
right? And again, like we were talking about before we started recording, you're the second Minnesota team. I mean,
the first or the second.
Not a lot of teams from Minnesota qualify. So.
Yeah, it's really hard because of how long our winter is.
Yeah,
like you can't be. Like the Texas team who we played in the World Series plays 12 months out of the year.
Right.
Because it's never cold.
Right.
And so we played together 3 months, and a part of that time wasn't even with that team. It was with a regular season team, and then we kicked it into gear and we went. And so it's just a totally different scenario. And somehow we got there. A lot of hard work, a lot of skill, and a lot of luck. A lot of lucky bounces, and
I mean that's sports though.
Yeah, and it was one of the most amazing rides and most exhausting rides that I've ever been on. But it was amazing.
Well, that is super cool. All right, last couple of questions. Favorite Jewish holiday?
Oh wow. I'm more of a family person than I am a ritual person.
Okay.
And so, honestly, it's any holiday where I can leave campus and be with my family.
Okay.
So Rosh Hashanah, Passover, kind of any of the ones where, and both sides of my family come together.
Oh, nice.
And so it's 35 people in our house having fun.
And it's a lot of people.
Right. And it's amazing.
Yeah.
And I think anyone that can facilitate that. I don't know if I necessarily have a favorite, though. My best memories are associated with Hanukkah.
Okay.
Because it was generally during winter break and was with my family, and some years it was somewhere warmer than Minnesota in December, and some years it wasn't. But I think my best memories are lighting Hanukkah candles with my family, probably.
Favorite Jewish food?
Favorite Jewish food? I think it's matzo ball soup, but with dumplings in it.
Really?
My Bobby makes the most incredible dumplings.
Okay.
That go in the soup, and it's just one of those ones where you take a sip of it and you're just like, oh, yeah. That's exactly what I had hoped that was going to be.
And does that gets made for all, for Rosh Hashanah, for Passover?
It used to a lot more.
Okay.
My mom has taken over the matzo ball soup, and she also makes a mean matzo ball soup.
But it's not Bobby's.
But it's different. It's a different kind of matzo ball soup. But if we're talking regular matzo ball soup, it's definitely my mom's.
Okay.
And then Bobby swoops in with the occasional treat, yeah. Occasional dumpling.
Well, Talor Blustin, thank you very much for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
We appreciate having you on this week.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks again to Talor for joining us this week. If you haven't yet, please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcast, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, most other places you can get podcasts these days. If you have suggestions for who would be a good interview on the pod, please email me. You can get me at editor@tcjewfolk.com. Thanks again for listening, and we will see you next week.